We'll call a meeting to order. This is the Michigan City Port Authority Board of Directors meeting, Monday, November the 6th, 2017. Our first order of business will be to approve or amend the minutes of the October the 16th meeting.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes of the October 16th meeting.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as they have been published. Any comments or questions? Comments or questions? Hearing none, those who favor the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. May we have the Harbor Master's report, Mr. Frame?
Yeah. An update on the Trail Creek fence repair. I spoke with Action Fence, the company that's doing the repair, and they expect to have the parts to fix the fence. They have to be custom made at this point, but he expects to have them towards the end of this month, the first part of December. But apparently his welder has been behind schedule, so that's the delay. On the bright side, ahead of schedule, the new racks were delivered at Trail Creek today. So the pieces are all sitting there waiting for us. Once we finish up all the winterizing and the time-sensitive stuff here to do before winter, we'll look at trying to start getting that put together. Update on the park, Washington Park Master Plan. If we remember a while back, they had selected an engineering company, I believe back in June or July. Well, they're currently surveying in the park. So they've come through and surveyed different points, and they're locating utilities and things like that. In speaking to Mr. Kienitz, the park superintendent today, he said it's moving, and they expect the preliminary plan is to have an initial meeting with the engineering company on the 17th, and I'll be invited to that. So assuming that comes through, we'll probably find out more where everybody is at that point. And we also have installed no parking signs up in the area by the launch ramp here by Washington Park. We had an issue a couple months ago, people were parking in there, and the argument was it wasn't well enough marked for no parking. So we added some no parking signs. And unless anybody has any questions, that's all I have for now.
Report. Okay. Mrs. Palicki, may we have your report, please?
Sure. The first part of our 2018 billings have all been mailed. The new rates are posted on our website. The website now has mobile capability, which it did not have before, that you'll be able to look it up on your smartphone and things. I also have the winter storage, the final report on that from 2016 and 2017. Last year we had 249 votes. This year we had 250. And they just kind of all changed within themselves of the storage and the inside and the outside and service only and things. So even with anybody that canceled this year, we went on and made that up, plus one more new customer. And that's all I have.
Board, do you have questions of Mrs. Palicki? Any questions? Marianne, I have a couple. Are all the 2018 contracts, have they all been mailed out?
Yes.
Okay. And the website, I noticed that there's some major changes on the website. And I thought it was an improvement.
Good.
So are you all finished with everything?
For right now, some of them had to be changed like that because of the capability of
Well, I especially was pleased with the way you've displayed your fees. It's much easier to find out what the fees are, and it just jumps out at you pretty easy to read and understand. So anyhow, I think it looks really good. Mr. Garrett, may we have the budget and financial oversight report, please?
Sure. Just gonna touch on a couple of things. You have your list in front of you. The second one down for $9,862.20 is payroll. Two down from there for $3,689.30 is a bill for the water department. And if you go two down from there, you'll see the exact same number again. And this was our new system's error, so we ended up paying the water department twice, but that means we won't have a bill for a while. So on a positive note, we have a credit coming from them. And then if you go about roughly halfway down for $2,090, even that's landscaping. And then about six down from there, not even six, sorry, two down from there. For $6,522, you have our barge removal insurance paid, and about five from the. If you go about five from the bottom, you have for $2,620.31 of trash removal, and then three down from there for $4,435.68 is some maintenance on the key system. If you add the 8 items up, they total about roughly 36,000 of the 51. And that leaves, that's those 6 items, there's 43 on this, so the other 15,000 is the rest of them. It's not too bad. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I have to make a motion that we pay our bills as presented.
Second?
We have a motion second to pay our bills as they have been presented. Any comments or questions?
Just a question, the Dunker Sloot bill, we kicked that around a few minutes ago and I wasn't really listening. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
The insurance paid them, the bill was $6,522. The insurance company sent us the check for $5,622. It took the deductible out of the money that they were gonna pay Dunker Sloots, but they sent it to us instead of sending it to them, and we deposited the $5,000 some in the bank.
Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Anything else?
Wait a minute. Well, then who paid Dunker Sloot? Us or them? Yeah, I mean, I know it was Dunker Sloot's money,
$5,000.
but did we pay Dunker Sloot then out of that money?
Yes.
Out of that 6,000, 5,000 something was the
5,000?
insurance. And they took the deductible out, so that $1,000 we had to add to it.
Okay.
You square, Bruce?
Yeah, that was confusing. Okay.
All right. Anything else?
What was our Edgewater Resources payment for?
Oh, the racks.
$1,197? I thought we paid for all of it. No?
It's for the engineering.
All for the
Right.
engineering part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could that be anything on the new project we've got going with the replacement of the barge?
Oh, could be some of that too,
Could
yeah.
be some of that in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm with Bruce, I thought we had pretty much picked up most of the rack stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else? Questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Manor, insurance, park liaison, please.
Okay, Park Liaison, I'm gonna expand a little bit on what Tim said about the parking and stuff and what they're doing with the surveying. I went to the park board meeting and like Tim says, they're doing a survey, and they're gonna out of this survey, they're gonna come up with an MOU, of course, Memorandum of Understanding. And according to what they were saying there, when they get the survey back, their intention is to move very quickly on this particular project. That's the way it was explained at the park board meeting. The only thing that might hold it up is there was a city council ordinance from the 1960s that needs to be addressed. And I'm not sure what that ordinance is. They didn't go into any detail about that ordinance. But it must have something to do with parking down here, I imagine. So I don't know if you're aware of that or
It
not.
spells out the boundary lines
Okay.
between us and the park. It's a legal description, and they should be able to ask the council to modify that once the surveying is done, because then they'll have new legal descriptions
Okay.
on where everything is.
So that shouldn't be a problem then. That should be,
Unless the council
Hopefully.
gives it problems, but no, it shouldn't.
okay.
The technical side of it shouldn't be a problem.
All of this that we're talking about right here also has also been, the redevelopment has already okayed funding for this particular project, so it's going to be paid for, so. What else did I have with the park board? Just a few things for us to know of what's going on down here, and maybe it was even in the paper, I don't know, I don't get the paper anymore. But right now, the greenhouse is under construction. They need to put a slate roof on it, and it'll be installed soon. Should be done by Thanksgiving is what they're saying. The next project that they are going to tackle, and this is the WPA project that we're talking about here, the next project they're going to tackle is the castle. They're going to work on the castle. The other thing they discussed was Monkey Island. Monkey Island is part of that project also. I got indications that the superintendent over there was planning on possibly bringing Monkey Island back to its original state. But the problem with that is, a lot of the board members discussed this, and the problem with that is there's repairs under that Monkey Island. There's all kind of tunnels underneath of that island and stuff. And employees have to go down in there to work on stuff in there, and that stuff is under so much disrepair that they don't know whether it's going to be able to be salvaged or not. So they're really not sure what's going to happen with Monkey Island. They're going to do something with it, but they're really not sure at this particular time what it is. And again, the redevelopment commission has also approved $45,000 for that project too. So that's just some information for us to know of what's going on down here. The old Lighthouse Museum, and that's being refurbished as we sit here. They're working on the old Lighthouse Museum, and they're doing a real good job on it from what the park department's, they're very satisfied with this. And I think that's basically all I've got with the park department. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. No questions? Okay, well, with the claims and insurance, I just got information that Mark Cullen, who is the inside marine adjuster for Hanover Insurance Company, has, our coverage limit for that barge is $59,400. We received a prior payment, I don't remember that, but supposedly our prior payment was $5,522.
That's the one they were gonna send to Dunker Sleuth, but sent to
Oh.
us.
So that's not part of,
That's part of this. It's buried.
well, now I am confused because they've okayed to send us a check for $53,878, and it's supposed to arrive within 5 to 7 business days, but they deducted that $5,522 from that.
We already have that.
Okay, but that wasn't for the barge itself, was it? That was for work that Donkersloot did for us.
It's still from the barge. There was no separate insurance policy for the work. It was, as I understand it, there was value placed on the barge, and they paid that. Didn't we send the insurance company the invoice for the Donkersloot work?
Right, he took it when he was
And
there one day.
And they paid it. They sent us the check. That's the one that you and Mary Ann were discussing.
Okay, okay.
So in effect, there's two checks, the one we've already received
Gotcha.
and this one that you're announcing.
I just thought that the 59,400 was for the barge itself, and that other payment would come out of some other part of our insurance. I didn't check it. I don't know what our attorney would.
No, that's correct.
That's correct.
59.4 total, they made an
59.4
advance payment on that.
They made an
by
advance
paying
payment.
Dunkersloot.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
It is confusing.
It is confusing. So we should be getting a check for $59,878 within 5 to 7 business days, unless we've already gotten it.
No, he just said this day, but the check would be for 53,800.
I'm sorry, did I say 59?
Yeah.
53, you're correct.
I like your number better.
50. I'm looking up at the 59.4 is what I'm looking at, 53,878, yes.
Okay.
That's all I have.
So, okay, so the insurance company has paid, well, they've agreed to pay their responsibility
Right.
on the barge. That goes to the bank, and we'll be talking about the replacement barge later in the meeting.
Okay,
So, does that mean that they've done their, investigation and now they're completed? And this is what came out of it?
yeah, financially, yes, but
This is a settlement.
we still have to remove that barge, and that's a different,
Well, in answer to Aaron's question, yes, you're right on the barge itself and the insurance company. But there's still an investigation that has not been completed yet. And that's the accident investigation
Right, yeah.
being conducted by the Coast Guard at our request. And we'd really like to get that wrapped up so that we can begin then moving forward on getting the barge off of our property. We can't do anything until that investigation has been completed. Agreed, Joe?
Oh, definitely. Did they come out today,
They came out last Thursday.
last Thursday? Okay.
They were here Thursday and crawled all around in it.
Okay.
And I got the impression when they were finished that their next step is just to write up the report, that they looked at and took pictures of everything they needed.
Well, how does the medical information correspond with that? Is that holding things up?
I don't think that's holding things up. I think it was the need for him to get a special, what was it, a chemist or somebody to go in there and take some samples in those confined areas to see if it was safe to go in, poke around, take pictures and things. Now, apparently that has been done.
Well, how about the medical reports on the employees?
Oh, well, we can approach it one of two ways. We put together HIPAA authorizations, which everybody else in the state of Indiana will accept, but the hospital won't accept them. They apparently want their form to be used. So we can either use the hospital forms, or we can have each of the 3 employees, whichever would be easier, to go in and sign the forms there. They'll have a notary there. You can sign it. I can give you the information of who you should identify as the party that is entitled to receive them. It would probably be Tim Drury, United States Coast Guard, and then it would be from the date of the accident, maybe 30 days forward. And it would just be those limited medical records. They're not going to be able to go back and ask for your medical records from 5 or 10 years ago. That's not what they're interested in. So however the board wants me to proceed, I'm happy to do it either way.
Okay.
And this is all really just for our own personal clarification.
It's all part of the investigation.
Yeah.
The investigation is for our personal,
For the
we're
Coast
not
Guard.
required to have that investigation.
Well, when there's a marine accident, you have to have an investigation.
Okay.
Yeah. And the medical records is just because you're supposed to, after an accident occurs with injuries, you're supposed to have drug testing done.
Ah, gotcha.
And that's something that we'll probably have to address in the coming weeks or months, putting together a policy to that effect. But that's what they want the medical records for, to see if any blood was drawn, any drug tests done.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
That answers my question.
You have anything else, Bruce?
no, I don't.
Bill Square? Okay. Mr. Ferguson, master planning?
Nothing to report. Tim has already talked about the outside racks, and we'll be moving forward on that, and the barge, so no, nothing.
Okay. Mr. Messina, Board of Communications Special Events?
I have nothing to report either.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Messina? In terms of port operations, I have a couple things. It's time to renew the Dockside Cafe lease. And Joe, I'm to the understanding that you and the staff are working
Excuse me.
on the new contract language.
That is correct.
And we'll, when that's finished and the board approves it, we'll advertise it.
Yeah, it's actually, the one I've got it's about 14 or 15 pages long, so I didn't want to make copies. It's just in draft form at this point, but we are working on that.
Okay. The other thing, we've been working on the replacement barge. We got some preliminary information back from various interested vendors. We didn't feel like that the information we received was really thorough and complete. There were several questions from all the vendors. So we asked the engineering company to go back and refine the specs and ask for another submission of the RFPs from those same vendors. We want to make sure that all the things that we want covered are covered in their quotation. I don't know what the status of that is right now. Maybe, if we're lucky, we'll be able to open bids at the next meeting. What do you think?
I would expect so.
Okay. So, we'll, there should be 3 or 4 firm bids with all the specifications that we've laid out. They're available for us to consider at the next meeting. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
The lease for Dockside, would that be a 3-year lease? The lease was signed for the Dockside Cafe, is that a 3-year lease or 2?
I think it was a 3-year lease,
That's what I was thinking, 3-year.
but it's expired, whatever it is. Dan, I think it's 3 years.
3, okay.
May we have the attorney's report, Mr. Zach Noon?
Certainly. Would you like me to begin with the Singing Sands? An update on the Singing Sands project? We had posed some questions. The Singing Sands project is, as I understand it, it's largely a federally funded recreational trail that apparently goes all the way throughout Northwest Indiana, and Michigan City just being a part of it. And I guess it's between 6th and 8th Streets, is it, on Michigan Boulevard. So some of our property abuts along that route. And so we posed some questions to the engineer. For example, one of them was, will the project in any way restrict the entrances to Port Authority property on 6th and 8th Streets? Now apparently they won't be permanently restricted, but temporarily while some of the construction is going on. They say the entrances at 6th and 7th will be the same width. The current sidewalk crosswalks will be replaced with trail crosswalks. Entrances will need to be temporarily closed or restricted to replace the existing decorative crosswalks. Another issue involved our fence and the gates. They responded that the fence from 6th to 7th Streets will not be impacted. They're going to grade up to the fence, but not beyond it. It appears that the gate at the 7th Street entrance will not be affected by the project. Between 7th Street and where the retaining wall begins, they're showing the need to grade the lawn area inside the fence, and likely will need to lower the fence in the area. All along the retaining wall, the fence will not be impacted. We're showing grading up to the fence, but not beyond it. Then we posed a question about the Port Authority sign at the front gate, the Trail Creek Marina sign. They said we are impacting the landscape area north of 7, and it appears that the sign will need to be relocated. It would be adjacent to the trail pavement and be a hazard for users. Then through our right-of-way process, the Port Authority will be compensated for the relocation of the sign. And I'll get to a memorandum of understanding in a moment. But what I'm going to propose is that wherever that sign is relocated, it should be mutually agreed between the Port Authority and the city. Then will the city be installing additional signs? And their response is there will be additional signs added. There will be trail traffic signs located where appropriate warning needs to be given for stop locations and guidance, and occasional trail identity signs will be installed. So to that end, I put together a memorandum of understanding which sets forth some of the representations that they have made to us about the impact on our property, about the areas along the fence that are going to be graded, and the relocation of the sign and things of that sort. And this is just a draft, but I'm happy to pass it out for members of the board to take a look at. I'd be happy to get additional input from staff to make sure that when we do propose the memorandum to the city, that it accurately reflects all of the board's wants and desires. But generally, it's the memorandum of understanding recites that it's the city's responsibility, the city is paying for it, the city will have to maintain it. In terms of the relocation of the sign, I put in a provision asking that it would be mutually agreed between the Port Authority and the city where that sign goes. But again, if I get additional input from staff, then I'll turn it over to the city attorney and see what the city attorney thinks. And then at some point, I'm hoping in the very near future to be able to present something to the board that can vote on in terms of a finalized memorandum of understanding.
Do they know when this would be occurring? Because I know that there's some entrances that may be closed because of the work being done. Do they have a time frame of when this is going to happen?
I don't recall it from what I read in the emails, if they had given us an indication of when that work would start.
I don't think I've heard a date.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
I could certainly ask.
yeah, I'm just wondering, like, oh, we're going to do this in July.
Yeah, that
As
would-
long as they do it one at a time, it shouldn't be that bad.
Joe, do you have drawings to this effect to show us exactly?
I think we do. I don't think I've seen them yet, but Tim, do we have them?
Yeah, well, it's not a full-size drawing, it's
Yeah.
a little tiny, you can't hardly read it thing. Basically, what they're doing is coming down the sidewalk along the boulevard.
Yeah.
And they need to widen the sidewalk to make it ADA compatible to be part of this trail. So it's just taking the sidewalk that's there and making it wider.
Well, one of the questions I had was you mentioned something about they were going to grade on the other side of the fence down to the wall. What wall are we talking about?
It's the retaining wall.
Yeah,
up on,
but I don't
I
think.
think north of 7th.
Yeah, and there's hardly any space there. I think the sidewalk in some places butts right up to it. But they'll have to figure that out.
I didn't see any indication that they had planned on moving any walls.
I can't believe they would even consider that. But
Yeah, and I was going to say, because there's one part that you said the fence would need to be lowered. Does that,
I'm not sure what they mean.
if that raises any security risks, or, I mean, and I'm assuming they will pay for the lowering of that fence?
Yeah, I think if the grading is going to lower the grade, then maybe the fence lowers along
Right.
with it so that it follows the grade. That may be it, but we can clarify that as well.
anything else, Joe?
Yeah, well, now that the Hanover is tendering payment for the barge, in our view, I think it becomes their responsibility to move that when the Coast Guard gives us the okay, when they say that our investigation, at least to the extent that it involves the barge, then Hanover needs to get that thing out of it. And from what I understand of past practice at the Port Authority, we don't want junk and useless items laying around. And that barge it's not only an eyesore, it's a potential liability. I mean, kids get in there and start playing on it, crawling through it and things like that. We don't want that on our property any longer than it has to be.
Joe, I don't know if it's a correct assumption or not, but it seems to me that in that they totaled the barge, it's theirs.
Yeah, they paid us for it. That's my view. And I think the only thing holding us up is permission from the Coast Guard. Once we get permission from the Coast Guard, I'm happy to talk to the insurer and say, move it.
It was my understanding from discussions we had prior to this that they didn't want anything to do with it anymore. It's yours. You do whatever you want with it.
They didn't want any salvage value out of it or any subrogation value out of it. But
I didn't
it's
think
not
they
ours
planned on
anymore.
moving it. I thought they expected us to move it. That's what I thought.
No, I seem to recall that they said it was going to be their responsibility,
Okay.
but I'll double check that.
Yeah, because that could be pricey.
Yeah,
Well, you know, if you total your car,
They come and pick it up.
they
take
don't
it.
send it back home and put it in your garage.
it's theirs.
So, were you thinking of giving them a call again and
Well,
talk?
Coast Guard first.
Well, what I was thinking is if we were gonna make some communications with Hanover, could say it, as soon as we find out about the investigation, we'll let you know now, we expect that thing to be gone.
Yeah,
Versus when an investigation is done and then call them, oh, well, it'll take us a couple months.
Yeah, I could do it either way.
But, you know,
Put them on notice that we expect it as soon as the Coast Guard gives the okay for them to remove it. And then in terms of the Coast Guard investigation, I had understood that they were going to come on November 6th, but apparently they came last week and did what they had to do. And I'll follow up with Tim Drury on the medical records, but I'll also follow up on him in terms of, are you done with the barge? And if they're done with the barge, then get the wheels moving. Also, I think it was today that the lady from the University of Chicago did her filming. It was at 6:30 this morning. The filmmaker is happy to and will thank the Port Authority for opening up our property to her for this project. I know that Mrs. Meir had wondered if the public and the media would be alerted, but the filmmaker told me she would prefer that the media and the public not be alerted so that there wouldn't be too many people around. And I think that's all I have.
Board, you have questions of Mr. Zegnan? Any questions? Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Do we have any old business?
Well, I think I have one thing that Joe and I spoke about it a little earlier this evening. I spoke with Andy Skiat today. He's with Marcus Electric. They're running the conduits under the creek and across to the bridge tenders building. And their original plan was to mount some electrical cabinets on the retaining wall about halfway between the parking lot and the creek on the George property. That has changed a little bit because of the angle that they had to go down to get the depth to get underneath everything. The conduits actually go into the ground way up by the sidewalk. So he wanted to know if they needed a change in the MOU, if they went with a subterranean flush mount ground vault that those conduits would come into. They would no longer have any boxes on the wall. They would just trench along the wall all the way to the bridge tenders. And Joe and I looked at the way the MOU was worded, and it looks to us like it's fine and actually better that they do it that way, because then there won't be any visual when they're finished.
Nothing to run into.
Right. So I told Mr. Skiat this evening preliminarily, we think you're good to go, pending if anybody here had any questions.
Yeah, the actual language is permission to install the Port Authority acting by and through its Board of Directors hereby grants the county permission to use portions of Port Authority property necessary to install the said conduits and electrical boxes, and, if necessary, to affix the electrical boxes to Port Authority property at the terminus of the conduits. Well, they're not going to put the electrical boxes on the Port Authority. It's going to be underneath, so everything that precedes that covers the electrical boxes and the conduits. So I don't think that we need to modify the MOU in any way.
Well, Joe, there's another issue there though. And that happens to be the MOU we have with the state on if they're going to break ground over there, break soil, then I think we have to be thinking about that. That MOU says we're never going to do that.
The trench would run along the wall. He said it would be about 24 inches deep. They'll contain all the soil and put it all back. The boxes themselves will go up in a planter at the parking lot area up there, and they're also 24 inches square. So they're not going very deep, but that's a good
Yeah, I
point.
had not considered that.
I don't know if the depth has any real bearing on it. The idea is that that's supposed to be a sealed area. And breaking it open compromises the seal. And I think, Joe, I think you need to dig that MRO out and call the state.
Will do.
We wouldn't want to discover we had a problem later.
Is that going to significantly hold up progress on this?
Depends.
Well, whether it does or not, the important thing is that we do have a responsibility because we're the holder of that memorandum of understanding, and we signed up on it, that we would agree to it and support it and enforce it. Okay. Is there anything else? Is there any old business? If not, entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion, we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, board.